Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Doc, I guess you left it there, and talking about hypocrisy. Talking about hypocrisy in this particular process. I don't know. I mean, we have a president that's entitled to make a pick, and we have a Senate that is entitled to vote. But if you come out and say immediately, we're not going to vote, doesn't matter what you do, I mean, that's not hypocrisy. It's downright obstruction. That's an abrogation of their duty under the Constitution, pal.
So if Senator Schumer said that in the final 2 years or year and a half of the Bush presidency that the Democrats would not consider any appointments that Bush would make, Bush 2.
Oh,
that's okay. But that's not.
When was Sam Alito appointed to the court?
I couldn't tell you.
It was within the last 2 years.
But Schumer said, listen.
So they did it anyway, right? So what they say one thing and do another?
Well, yeah, that's Democrats. It's hypocrisy for
right. And so, but are you trying to tell me that the Republicans are going to say this? And then
we have some very practical things we're running up against. One, you have to keep in mind, everybody out in Washington needs to have their beauty rest and sleep. So they're going to be heading out of Congress, in May? Something like that? Is that when they adjourn? And then they may come back in October. So there's going to be a giant gap where these essentially lazy bums aren't doing anything anyway. And then two, if you're coming straight out and saying, listen, we have an election coming up, because this is one of the things that's unprecedented is the short amount of time between the president and the new president, between the current president and the new president. There's been a couple of times when there's been like 13 months or 18 months or something like that, a short period of time. But I think this is the first time in history there's been this little time between when a Supreme Court justice died and when a new president takes over.
Oliver Wendell Holmes died in January of 1932. Okay.
All right.
He died in the seat. Ben Cardozo, appointed by Hoover, was appointed in January of 1932 and was confirmed in February of 1980.
Yeah,
within a couple of weeks.
That has to do much more with the popularity of Roosevelt than anything else.
No, Hoover. And in an election year, he was running against Roosevelt. And so what I'm trying to say is it's not unprecedented. And in fact, the only other time
that modern era,
it only crying out loud. The only other time that it happened the other time that it's happened. This is the only other. Let me repeat myself one more time. The only other time that a justice died in the office in an election year, his replacement was nominated and confirmed within a month. So this idea that there's this rule or that there's this tradition it's made up. It's a fantasy. It's a complete fabrication.
There's also nothing. Well, and you're right. So there's no rule. There's nothing about the amount of time that it will take for the Senate to confirm anybody. Right? I mean, it's not you don't have to confirm somebody within 90 days. You don't have to confirm somebody within 2 years.
Nope.
So part of the problem is the court has always been political. And in this case, all these Democrats that have supported blocking Bork, that, told George Bush, we're not going to appoint anybody in last year, said they're all hypocrites. They all know, they can obstruct that. And part of the thing is and this is something that I think the Republicans need to get straight. The Democrats will sit there and nominate somebody like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There you go. She's liberal, and we don't make any apologies for it, and we think she's a great Supreme Court justice. Whereas, and you pointed this out, the Republicans say we just want balance on the Supreme Court. This idea that you can get along with Democrats and have them do what they're supposed to do is ludicrous. Appoint a conservative, right? If you run in the country, appoint a conservative.
John Roberts and Sam Alito. That happens all the time. Look, I don't understand what your argument is. Like, what's your argument?
Well, my argument is Democrats are a bunch of hypocrites. If you sit there and you look at all the articles that are written from the left about President Obama and that the Republicans should stand out of the way and just approve
No
whoever.
one is saying that.
Everybody's saying that. Schumer's saying that. Clinton's saying that.
No one serious is saying that. They're saying and the reason that they're saying, hey, give the nomination a fair shot is because your boy Mitch McConnell came out and said, we're not going to consider anybody. Don't bother nominating someone. So this is what is so great about the Republican outrage in this particular issue, aside from the fact that they've been outraged that Barack Obama hasn't been afraid to be a president his entire 2 terms in office, number one. Number two.
Amen to that, brother.
Number two is that we have it's February now. January 20th, 2017 is when the next president is inaugurated. So if we're saying we're not going to do anything, that means that it's going to be an 8-person Supreme Court until at least February of 2017. So that means an entire solid year of work that could be done by the Supreme Court that a lot of it that can't now be done. And I guess we're just okay with that.
Well, how long does it take for something to get to the Supreme Court anyway?
Hold on a second. There are plenty of pending decisions. There are plenty of very important pending decisions that you should feel that need to be decided. One, for example, Fisher v. Texas, the affirmative action case out of the University of Texas Law School. Or I think, the University of Texas undergrad. That's a case that needs to be resolved one way or the other if you're a conservative, because you've lost all the way up, and given the oral arguments and Kennedy being the swing vote when Scalia was still on the bench, you had a pretty good shot that case was going to go your way. And so now you're content. Now talk about hypocrisy. Now you're content. With maybe stalling it out for over a year. You're going to hamstring the court in some of the most important decisions, and you're just fine with that. We're all about good governance. We're all about making sure that the country is able to function, but you're okay with the Supreme Court in the land just sitting on its hands for over a year because you don't want somebody that the constitutionally elected 2-term president is going to nominate. Talk about hypocrisy.
Well, the hypocrisy really boils down to there's a lot of, if you appoint somebody who's that liberal, then it swings the balance of power too much to the lefty side. I freely admit that. Mm-hmm. 2, this is politics. I don't care what you say. This is politics. This is how it runs. And when you start talking about President Obama being a president, and I agree with you 100%, this guy doesn't apologize for his beliefs. I'm glad that Ditch McConnell finally got strapped on a pair and went, hold on, we're not going to do that. I'm glad for that. The other thing is, my third point, how long does it take to get to the Supreme Court? There are years and years and years to get up there. Waiting another year isn't going to kill it.
That's a facile thing to say because there are cases that are currently pending that need decisions, some of them that Scalia has written on already. So what do we do with those? What do we do with that stuff? What do we do with those votes that he's cast? We need to be able to take care of this stuff. Also, the Republicans blocking all of this, the Republicans playing an obstructionist game. I'm not saying they're not entitled to do it. I'm not making that argument. And I'm also not saying that the Senate can't vote whatever way they want. I'm saying that it seems like, and this is where we're going to put on the political hat for a second. I think the Republicans do it at their peril. I think that if the Republican Party stands by this hell no obstructionist nonsense, you're going to not just hand over the presidential election to the Democrats, you're going to lose Senate seats here in November.
All right. That is a topic we're going to come back with. What impact is this standing up for your constitutional right not to hear arguments about President Obama's
That's not
Obama's
the right
appointment? We're going to be discussing the political fallout from this course of action that the Republicans have rightly taken. We'll be back right after this break.